So why did you end up going down that career path?
as
Like
far as
for martial arts in general?
that's a good question. So, what got me into that path, that career path? I started martial arts as a young child, kind of brainwashed because I was 4 or 5 years old and I was getting beat up by 6 or 7 year olds. And my mom and my uncle kind of taught me how to defend myself. But during that time, they were like, well, you're 6 or 7 too. And I didn't really figure it out until my sixth birthday. So,
Well,
um,
what do you mean by that? When they say you're 6 or 7 too, were they
well,
trying?
if everybody was six, they made me think I was six. Like they're not bigger than you, they're not older than you. You know, they may seem that way, but you can defend yourself. And they kind of brainwashed me to make me believe in myself in order to defend myself. Because I was like, no, they're older, they're bigger.
So I just wanted to get rid of that mental block.
And I give that to my fighters this day. But so growing up, I had a kind of troubled history with growing up. My father wasn't really there. My stepfather was there, but then as a teenager, he kind of took a different path. And as he took that path, it kind of created a big kind of rift within my household. So at that time, my mom felt it was best that I moved with one of my uncles. And, bouncing around here and there, my goal was always to finish school and to go to college to be electrical engineering. So at 17, I found myself as a senior in high school, homeless, and in a position where I needed to find a way to finish school. So getting in some trouble, the probation officers, police officers, they all said, well, since you don't have any place to go, we're going to recommend you go to Job Corps. And I said, well, I want to become an electrical engineer, and I don't think I can do that job for it. And they were like, yeah, you can. You can apply, you can go to college, you can take electrical classes, this and that. So I went there, and like I said, I was a senior in high school, and I had a choice. Do I finish high school, or do I take this GED test? So 2 weeks in, I took a GED test, got a GED, a month later, and was out of what they call the school building. So I didn't have to continue on with the school like everyone else. So I started a trade. Trade was electrician. And so during that time, I also wanted to go to college to become an electrical engineer. You can't take up the trade and become an engineer without going to college. So I applied for Penn State out in State College, PA, whatever it was, and did a semester there. And during that semester, I kind of figured, I don't really know if college is for me. Not that it was just hard, just between the life of being going back and forth to Job Corps and not really having that experience of being on campus. And
What did Job Corps do?
what did they do?
Yeah, like when you went there, was it kind of just like school?
I mean, it was a school that had several trades. There was a dorm. There was a recreational center, a mess hall, infirmary, kind of like being on like a military type uh, school type of thing or something.
Sounds kind of fun.
It was okay. I mean, it was a little different because now you have a facility filled with children that have a history of either violence or neglect, and there was a lot that went on there, man. There was a lot that went on.
Did it make it difficult to stay on like the straight and narrow path when you're
No, not at
surrounded?
all. See, I was although I did some bad things, I did them out of survival, not out of any malicious intent or to become rich or anything like that.
No Scarface dreams.
No, 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 nothing like that. I always my mom gave me good morals. Um, and she also put the fear of God in me. So
Mhm.
so I never wanted to see her um I always wanted to see her proud of me. I never wanted to disappoint her in any way. So and at this time, I was a very disappointing young man. Um, then, during that time, I met my son and my daughter's mom, and we moved to Philadelphia. And at that point, like when my daughter was on her way, I was working at a dollar store and on Aramingo Avenue, and I was making about $3.15 an hour, and uh, my girlfriend and I were living out of my car at times. Times we were renting rooms, and it was really, really hard. And it was winter, and
That's no fucking
the
joke.
water pump went in my car, so now the car is overheating if I keep it running too long. Can't drive it too far, and I'm just kind of running it until I can't run it anymore. And this guy comes up to me and says, I have this job opportunity for you as a landscaper. This is making $7 an hour, you know, could really use your help. And I thought, man, 3.15 an hour, $7 an hour, I'm out of here. I'm going. At the end of my first day, they handed me a check that says, we'll let you know if we have any more work.
Oh shit.
So now I'm like, what do I do? So um, I was on the streets a little bit, trying to make ends meet. And then I got an opportunity. I met a guy who had properties. I let him know my situation. I gave him enough money to pay at least 3 months rent, and he let me move into an apartment. At that time, I just started putting applications in everywhere. And by this time, my daughter's already born. My son's on his way.
Hmm.
So I get I see on Hunting Park Avenue there's a Pep Boys there, and on the window it says groundskeeper. Hiring I think it's like $7.50 an hour. So I applied for it and had to go take a drug test and come back and get interviewed and all that stuff. And 2 days later, I was on the job working, and I bust my ass on that job so much to get into the store to start because I knew about cars. I worked on cars on the streets. Was what they call in Philly street mechanic. So
What is a street
a
mechanic?
street mechanic is someone who can fix your car, but they don't have to not a real legitimate mechanic. But I did basic things like change alternator starters. I could change uh, transmissions out,
How did you
clutch,
learn
things
that?
like that. Just between friends and my girlfriend's girlfriend at the time, her father. So I helped him. I helped friends learning stuff on the site. So kind of kept it going. That one car that died kind of taught me a lot as well because the way I found out about the whole water pump thing was trial and error, fixing this, fixing that, and get into that.
Uh-huh.
That was one thing I couldn't do at that time, and it really frustrated me. And so I had to learn more. And I'm giving you, although the story is long, I'm giving you the short version because there's so many other intricate details within there. But so I was working for Pep Boys. I started working in the oil room, then the parts counter. Occasionally I would go and switch out tires and stuff like that. And there was the manager there saw management quality within me. And he says to me, would you like to go through the management school? I said, sure. I said, but if I become a manager, my kids are, they're going to start school soon. I don't want to live in Delaware. I mean, I don't want to live in Philadelphia. I want to live back in Delaware. And he says,
How'd you land on Delaware?
my family was here. My mom, my sisters, brothers. So I went to school here, and I knew the school systems here versus the school system in Philadelphia. So he says, well, I'll check into that, but after you finish school. You got to finish that first. So I finished that, got everything, was assistant manager.
And
And
how old are you at this point?
this happened in 95, so I'm in my 20s. So I started working for them in 94, 95. So got that all done by 96, 97. I was back in Delaware. I was working at Price's Corner, became an assistant manager, not at Price's Corner. They sent me to DuPont Highway, Route 13, become an assistant manager there. And then when I saw the details of what managers have to go through, my pay versus others' pay, I left. I decided to start working for a place called Western Auto that's now NTB. But it was Western Auto, it was a family-owned business, did great, loved the family that I worked for. And there was a guy that pulled up that had an electrical problem with his car. Now, this is how we get back to the electrical stuff. Had an electrical problem with his car. Now, throughout this whole time, I still trained in Philadelphia. I boxed. I did Muay Thai here. I was still training the whole time. So that was the only way to keep me sane. Training was a way for me to deal with life. So if I didn't train, I would have ended up in jail
What was it, like a outlet like for your emotions or something like that? Or
um,
how did it
I guess you can say that it was a way for me to deal with things that I couldn't deal with verbally or emotionally. Like I didn't know how to articulate my feelings at that time. So, um, and I was brought up to where men didn't articulate their feelings. So, uh, we just kind of let them wash off our back like, water off a duck's back and just keep going. And that it just didn't work that way. So, Joe Hand's gym when they were on Thompson Street, Joe Diamond's Muay Thai, like or Lou Diamond, the different places that I had the opportunity to train just gave me a way out, a way to, like, I firmly believe once you step into a martial arts facility, you begin to let the outside world stay outside. And once you step onto the mat, your concentration is completely on the mat. That way, when you meet the outside world after your training session, you can think and operate with a clearer mindset. So that's how I just dealt with life. Um, then coming to Delaware, going through all that, my then wife, so we got married as we moved to Delaware. Then we're getting divorced and going through that. Now I'm a single father raising both my kids by myself. And I continue to compete. I continue to train. Um, Now helping this guy with his electrical problem with his car, he uh, he says to me, I don't understand why I didn't understand that concept. He says, why do you say that? He says, because I'm an electrician. I says, I've always wanted to be an electrician, but I just, after I came back out of Job Corps, I just didn't really know how to go about it. And he says, well, come down to the Union Hall, mention my name, just be there, make sure you're there before 7 a.m. Went there before 7 a.m. And at this time, I started working, I think it was Creedon Controls Electric, and I was a helper for several years. They saw me, well, maybe a year. They saw my work ethic, they saw the information that I knew, and they recommended that I or I apply for apprenticeship school.
Where do you think you got the work ethic from?
Determination, brother.
Yeah.
I was on my own a lot, and I just was determined not to fail. And I didn't want to not be successful in life. And I didn't have the information of how to be successful. So it was just trial and error throughout my whole life until someone said to me one time, you've tried it your way. Now what's it going to hurt for you to try it mine? And he just taught me what a man was.
Who is that?
And it was a good mentor of mine, Professor Robert Evans. Um, just doing things and kind of having someone to kind of fall back on with that information to kind of bounce back and forth. Now at this time, I'm able to help others. And there was another brother that helped me. He's like a father to me. His name was I call him Pop Harmon, Mr. Wardell Harmon. Now he helped me throughout it all. Like he's probably the one that said that to be honest. Um, but I never forgot those words. And he gave me a place to stay at times when I didn't. He helped me with my first car, when I was a teenager.
How'd you meet this guy?
He lived around the corner from me from when I was with my mom. And he also his older kids were friends of my uncle and his my uncle's cousins. So my uncle was only a few years older than me. So when I was in middle school, he was graduating high school.
Hmm.
So the he took me around them a lot. And then I love dogs, as we talked about earlier. So he had a litter of pit bulls, and I asked to buy one, but I couldn't afford it. And he wanted to give it to me, but he didn't want the other kids in the neighborhood to have it, because how they treated pit bulls. So he told me I can't give it to you because then I would be lying to them by saying I'm selling it. So how about you just give me 50 cents for it? That way I don't have to
How long
bother
this I can
them.
technically say, no, I sold it.
Yeah.
Don't worry about how much it's
Yeah.
classified.
So I did ended up getting pit bull that was stolen by one of those other guys. Um,
Or like they stole it from you?
yeah, yeah. My mom didn't want me to have her in the house while I was in school, so I had to put her in the backyard because someone took her from the yard.
Some bitch.
Yeah.
Hmm.
But yeah, so getting electrical field, then so several years going through electrical apprenticeship and whatnot. I had a fight in the ring, of course, not defending on the street. And I broke my ankle. I'd competed at the Art of War in Atlanta, and it was me against the Italian national champion, a guy named Cini Renato. And he and I are still friends to this day. I meet some of my closest friends on through fighting, but
Yeah. Do you guys talk afterwards?
yeah, we talked a lot. He didn't speak English, but I speak Spanish, so we kind of went back and forth until we got what we were talking about. But he speaks English now, and we were supposed to have a rematch in Italy. So I beat him in the fight, but I broke my ankle, so he had to go on for the because we were in a tournament, and this was a tournament that you had to win in order to become pro. So I beat him, but because I didn't knock him out, and I
How
broke
the
my
ankle get
ankle
broken?
on his shin as he blocked. Just threw the kick a little too long instead of being, more so with my shin. It should have been shin to shin, but it was more ankle to shin,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't flop around or anything. I just couldn't hold weight on it. But so he went on to compete throughout the rest of the tournament instead of both of us being eliminated. So he ended up winning the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So that was cause for us to have a rematch, but it also put me in a position to now I can fight pro. So I had 4 pro fights after that. This was Sancho, Chinese kickboxing. So you'll hear names like Riyad Kung Lee, Pat Barry. We were all within the same martial art.
Gotcha.
So um, the where was I? So the foreman says to me as I'm hobbling in, carrying my tools, and I'm 5 minutes late onto the work site. And he says, "You're going to need to figure out what you want to do, whether you want to fight or be an electrician." And that I never forgot that. That it didn't sting, but it was like, yeah, I should figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I was laid off for a while. I think it was hard to find work during this one year. So it was like 50 weeks out of the year. I think I only worked 2 weeks that one year. And
What are you doing the rest of the time?
well, I was on unemployment, but I needed to figure out like I'm sitting here waiting around trying to get into this, but I was still working on the side for Western Auto because I mean I still had a part-time with them on the weekends, but they didn't have any full-time work available. So now I'm like, what am I going to do? So I don't really have any skill except the electrical work, my work ethic, and martial arts. So as I'm walking down the street, I look at this bell bottoms place. I walk in. I says, "Guys hiring?" He said, and they're looking at me. I'm like 160 pounds, 6'2", and like, what's this guy gonna do?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, "You guys hire for bail enforcement agents or anything?" And he says, "How about you go down and get a background check and then come back and see me?" So they were trying to get me to run around. So I drive an hour away, go to Dover, come back, gave him the slip that showed I got my background check, and they're going to send it to them. So the guy says to me, "You really want to do this?" He says, "Yeah." He says, "Well, this is," I think a guy's Ernie or Billy or whatever his name was. He says, "This is," he has a gun strapped to his leg and one on his belt and has his badge on. He says, "Well, me, you, and him are going to go out this weekend and we're going to go after this guy." And he shows me this paperwork. And I'm like, all right.
Like a bounty hunter, like you skip
Yeah.
bail or something.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they took me to scare me,
Mm-hmm.
thinking I'm this,
See if you can handle this stuff. Mm-hmm.
So anyway, the guy that they're after bolts past the big guy who's
All the
operating the
guns,
business.
but
Now the guy who has all the guns can't catch this guy, and I just shoot past him, hit this guy, knock him down, fold him over, put him in position, ask the guy to bring handcuffs over because I don't have any handcuffs. And they were like, "Where'd you learn that?" I've been practicing martial arts for over 15 years at this point. So what type of martial arts? So we get into all that. He says, "Well, is there any more guys around you like you?"
mm-hmm.
And I bring in one more. And we stayed with him from 98 to about 2001, maybe 2002.
You have any story like
Oh, I got a lot of stories.
yeah.
A lot of stories. I tell you, there was only one person that I seen with my own eyes that I couldn't catch.
Yeah.
And everyone else that I saw, I caught. And
Who is this guy? Like a parkour, just jumping for just
No,
fast as fuck.
this guy, he felt that we were coming, and he was a really big time drug dealer in
When
Philadelphia.
you say he felt, what do you mean? Like he just saw you
Yeah,
guys?
he had control of his community, so he felt when someone different came in his community, he saw or got messages or something.
Hmm.
When we walked into a store, there were people that walked us out the back door of the store.
What do you mean?
We walked physically into a store that this guy owns, the guy we were looking for, and we were just kind of acting like, hey, I just want to buy some things. And these two guys come behind us two, and there's two guys in the door in the front. Says, you guys don't belong here. Y'all got to keep walking. Y'all not going back out this way. Y'all going that way. Walked us right back out to the car and says, yeah, we'll see y'all later.
All right, so just kind of that must have been a high tension right there.
Oh yeah, yeah. We thought we were going to see the guy out there, and we thought there was going to be some gunplay when we got out there.
Mm.
So we didn't really know what to expect. But yeah, that was the only guy we didn't catch. And then when we came back another time in a different car with Pennsylvania tags, now we thought we were going to have the upper hand, and we end up in a high speed chase that we had to pull off because they followed us there too.
A high speed. So what happens if the law catch like sees you chasing this guy like a
Well,
police officer?
we have to contact the police when we're in the area and let them know who we're after, what we're doing, and what we're driving, what we're wearing.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we have to let them know. Otherwise, they see a couple of rogue guys out there with guns. Now, a cop shows up, we have a gun in hand, we're getting shot.
Mhm.
All right. So yeah, we gotta let them know.
Sounds like an intense little side job,
Oh yeah,
or
yeah,
not even side, just job.
fun.
Hmm.
But from that, I also did executive security. I got a chance to bodyguard some celebrities.
Hmm.
Had a lot
And
of fun doing
celebrities.
that. Tyrese, Al Sharpton, Talent, that was a comedian. He and Rudy Rush. Um,
Were there any like almost losing your life sort of scenarios in this bodyguarding and this bounty hunting?
and the bodyguarding, no, and the bounty hunting, just that one time. Everything else, we were just super, super careful, did a lot of surveillance beforehand. I also became a private investigator.
Now, what does a private investigator do? Is that like,
That's the most boring job ever.
yeah, not like in the movies, like.
Nah, you just sit in front of cameras. You just spy on people. It's so boring.
I thought you were gonna say like, "Oh, my child went missing. The police won't do anything. Please, I need this vigilante to come."
Nah,
No,
nah, that's not a private investigator.
no. Is it like I
Private
think my husband's
investigator,
cheating on me?
camera like that, probably mounted on his dashboard in his car. He's sitting in his car eating. Can't play music because you gotta concentrate. You can't be on your cell phone because you gotta concentrate and look at the camera and or look wherever the camera's looking. And yeah, that's pretty boring.
Yes, it sounds like.
You could be there for hours.
Just wait. Nothing happened.
But
Nothing happened.
but I get the fun part for me out of that job was editing video because I love editing video. So that was kind of a hobby of mine that I picked up, and that was one of the ways as a private investigator that helped me make more money because I didn't have to hand video in and wait for them to edit. Like I could edit it, send it to them, grab the next one, and I'm on the next job.
What would it be footage of? Like, what are you watching people do?
There's people with people cheating, so
Also, I was kind of just kidding, but no, seriously.
that stuff. I mean, you got people who are saying that they're disabled, but now they're running with their kids and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So you just kind of follow them, and it was so boring, and it was so evasive, So although I stuck around as a part of the company for 5 years, that way I can start my own company if I wanted to. I only really worked for them for a year and some change, and I only did maybe a handful of jobs because it was just that boring. And I used the money to help fund my this business really when I first started. So getting back to how I got here is as being laid off and then doing all these other side jobs, they got slow at times of the year. So mainly in the summertime. So the guy the gym that I was fighting for says, "Well, can you help me with teaching the kids during the summer for summer camp?" I'm like, "Man, I don't know teaching the kids." And I look at my bank account and look at my bills. I'm like, "All right, you want me to teach those kids?" And from that point on, I kind of fell in love with it.
Hmm.
And I was like, that's what I'm going to
What
do.
did you love about it?
It was like kids going home saying that, they wanted to be like me, or I said this, so that's what they need to do, or for them to be better, they need to take my advice and things like that. And it was like I was making a change. And some of these kids didn't have fathers or didn't have a positive role model at home. They had a role model, but not a positive one. Maybe someone who they would not aspire to be like
Hmm.
and say, okay, well, I'm not going to do that, but what do I do? And, even now I have some kids where they're they may have one parent or another that doesn't give them the information for them to build for success. But then they can take some of the principles given through Jiu-Jitsu that I reach to them and use that for success.
What are some of the key principles to success in life that you found?
One, it's not necessarily the key principles, it's understanding how things work, money, credit, business, understanding how those things work and see where you fit in. Where's your drive fit in? So is your drive more so as an entrepreneur, or is your drive more as an employee? And everyone needs employees. Everyone can't be an entrepreneur. There's different stressors on each level. Which one are you willing to deal with? And understanding that and then building from our credo is more of that core foundation: seek perfection in character, be faithful, endeavor. All those things help build. Like anywhere you mess up, you go back to the first one: seek perfection in character. If you can't be faithful, seek perfection in character. If you can't refrain from violent behavior, seek perfection in character. If you can't make savage the body, seek perfection in character.
Who do you think are some of the most perfect, perfect characters that you've ever met in your life?
There are none I can say that are perfect, but there are several that give you those key aspects. So, looking at that, Grandmaster Evans gives several good key aspects. How to be stern, not have people walk over you. Learning that business aspect, be willing to put the work in. You see guys like that, and there's another instructor that I have, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu instructor. His name is Kevin Green. No, he's only up the street. Now, Kevin and my grandmaster, like both of these guys, and Kevin's my age. Grandmaster's, maybe 20 years older than me. Um, but both of these guys have lived a life of several lives within one. Like Kevin's very high ranked in the military. Also was a MMA fighter. Um, helps run a successful gym, but he doesn't really need to. He's six-figure income outside of that.
Hmm.
So then Grandmaster Evans, retired New York City police officer, doctor, entrepreneur. His son runs a record label that he's a silent partner on. Seeing these things, like all these different people showing that these things can be done, shows me that, okay, well, I run five businesses. I can do that because I've learned from these guys.
Is it a lot of delegating? Like, what does it take to run five businesses and not run yourself into the dirt?
Well, that's another good one, because you can either learn how to run a business, or you can become a slave to your business or an employee of your business. So I have a business that I'm an employee of. That's the one we're sitting in. Then I have four other businesses that I run. Okay. And the reason why I'm an employee of this business is because I love what I do here. And I wouldn't want to take away the element that I bring to under this roof. So the other aspects of the businesses, starting a new business, I don't need to be there to run that business. My business partner is a tech guy who does tech for the military, um, and he has all the information of what to teach me, what to teach anyone else as far as employees and so forth. Get behind the camera, film it, bang, it's online. Um,
What are your
the
other businesses?
I want to give them all up.
No, got you.
But I have an online business, just e-commerce online. That one I can operate or have anybody operate from anywhere in the world. That one's pretty easy. Then I have a promotional company that promotes fighting events. Um, and Like I ran the last one and I sat down and enjoyed the whole show. I didn't have any fighters on the show. I didn't have to work. My wife takes care of the front desk. Then we hire the sanctioning body. They bring all the judges, the referees, all that stuff. I hire a doctor. Doctor takes care of all her stuff. And we rent the venue. We have workers to clean up. We have volunteers to help with the glove table and all that stuff. I was able to sit down and enjoy the show. And the only thing I had to do was put the fights together.
So when did that transition happen? I assume it was like a slow step-by-step transition. When did that start to happen to becoming the owner of these businesses instead of the employee?
Really, it was Grandmaster Evans. He told me there was different aspects that I needed that he saw that other students wanted. And he was like, why don't you create that for them? I was like, I don't know how. He's like, figure it out. And that kind of sparked it to say, you know what, I can do this. Um, the uh, the promotional aspect and what was it, 2020 didn't have any activity because we couldn't have gatherings.
What was COVID like for your gym? Like,
Oh, we were shut down from March until June, early March till June 1st, and it was a refreshing reopening, but it financially hurt because we went from having over 100 students to opening back up with only 11. And but now we have over 10 times that. So the and then the new faces, the new energy, I was able to anything that I was not doing correctly or overlooking before, I was able to make sure that everyone comes in with that mindset, with the same mindset that I expect out of everyone. Instead of, I had a lot of people from other gyms that were kind of set in their ways, and I kind of let them get away with it. And I just needed to get back to that gritty, hardcore professor. I'm on the mat. When I step on the mat, everybody listens. It's time to rock. I needed to get back to that, and that reset kind of helped me get back to that.
all right. So moving on with the life story. So you're the bodyguard. So how does that like? When did you meet the Grandmaster?
I originally met the Grandmaster back in, it might have been 99 or 2000. Um, I was a UK for another instructor, and they had me kind of just being the guy that throws punches and gets thrown around. That's when I first met him. And then as a bail enforcement agent, um, the other guy that I worked with, they were close. They were student and instructor. And he asked Grandmaster to come into our Christmas party that we had, and we had an event at Sullivan's Restaurant and on 202 near or in Delaware near Pennsylvania line. And I think I remembered him ordering a Guinness Stout, and it was a new bottle that they had just come out with that has filter in the bottle or whatever.
Those little
And
bobbles in the bottom.
yeah,
Yeah.
so he asked the guy, says, "Hey, can you bring me a glass over?" And the guy starts to tell him about the bottle, like as he's educating him about the bottle. And he's like, I don't give a damn about what this bottle has in it. I want a glass. Can you bring me a glass, please?
Hmm.
And it's like just seeing that energy, man, it was like, man. So then
Well, what about that energy? Just like essentially, like I want this, I get this, as opposed to like sitting there politely, like, oh,
it's like
interesting. All right, fine, I'll
like
keep it.
he always says, do the right thing until you don't have to do the right thing anymore. So he asked nicely, and the guy wants to talk. It's like obviously he drinks the spirit. He knows what this bottle is. He doesn't want that.
Mhm.
He wants a glass.
Trying to convince. No,
Yeah.
trust me, you
But
want.
but then in 2005, so I started my business in '03. In 2005 or 2004 maybe, he walked in and the partner I had, business partner I had at the time, and myself, he looked at us, and then there was another young man that we were training who's now a high-ranked professor in the system. He was a teenage kid at the time, and he looks at us and says, "I think you guys have what it takes to run the system." And we thought that he meant the skill set. We were showing him stuff. He's like, "Nah, man, y'all way off." But our fighting. We weren't afraid to mix it up. Our athleticism, our mentality, our intellectual ability, all these things. He said that they this is what he saw to said, you guys have what it takes to learn it and run it. So that's when we begun,
Hmm.
and our relationship has been, kind of like a father or uncle, on since.
Man, I really love this gym. Like I've been to a lot of gyms, but this one has that colorful flair to it that kind of gets you energized just by looking around.
Yeah, we try to bring the streets to the inside.
Did you find like a local artist to do all this work?
A local artist actually brought other artists together.
Hmm.
So like that one in the back corner, that was done by an exec of Under Armour who came up
Like
and
the
came.
an exec of the company Under Armour, like design. Oh, very cool. All right, so gear shift. I'm curious, what is one of your biggest like fears for the future at the moment?
Um, I guess one of my biggest fears of the future is you always hear stories about the hormones and the meats and the foods, and then you have so many people kind of coming out about their sexuality and, you know, being so diverse and stuff like that. And I feel like it's a mixture of, okay, just who they are and a mixture of the chemicals that they put in what we eat. And I just feel like every generation coming on is like just so far out. Um,
When you
and
say
it,
far out, you mean like different from the previous one?
not like not necessarily every. I mean, every generation is going to be different. What I mean by so far out is like the responsibility aspect. Um, like when I was 25, I was a very responsible person. Now, I was looking for guidance, but I was a very responsible person. I see a lot of other 25-year-olds now that just are not very responsible. It's like their minds are just not really on what's important. And the like the voting aspect, the trust in the government, like it's just so far out. Like
When you say the trust and the voting, you mean like to be voting, who they're voting for, or a lack of voting? And when you say trust,
all of it,
hmm
all of it. I mean, there was when I was a kid, it was big about registering to vote and uh, voting. Now, a lot of us came up and was like, okay, like for the whole this whole Trump and Biden thing that came up, I voted independent. Now everybody's mad at me and says, well, you really voted for Trump. Now everybody else is like, well, you really voted for Biden. I'm like, no, I went independent.
who did you vote for? If you don't, if it's
Yeah, I don't,
understandable.
but I went independent, and it was like I didn't trust this my left hand, I didn't trust my right hand, so I went right into the middle. And it's kind of hard to really talk about the fears within there because there's so many, and I know I'm kind of rambling on, but but the food industry really scares me. Um, I don't think that a lot of this generation really gets that, okay, the Food and Drug Administration are one company. Like that is a huge deal. And, when you look at how a lot of this came up, let's talk about like Heinz ketchup. Okay, so Heinz ketchup was, a manufacturer, um, manufactured ketchup, and other companies started to make ketchup. Other people started to make ketchup, and they were putting things in their ketchup that would make it cheaper or unsafe or could get you sick and stuff like that. So the owners behind ketchup said, okay, well, I'm going to take this to the government and I'm going to try and bring an end to this, right? So this was the birth of the Food and Drug Administration.
So you're saying that the owners of Heinz, the ketchup, they saw other people trying to come up with ketchup and kind of making let's call it laced ketchup for lack of a better,
Uh-huh.
all those fucked up laced ketchup, and they went to the government to find a way to regulate it.
Yes. But this is how the Food and Drug Administration came about. Okay. So they made it criminal to put certain things in the ketchup, right? But now when you look at it, it should be criminal, the things that they allow in the rest of our food. There's things that in our food that can trigger us to become hungry. Now we're eating food and there's ingredients in the food that trigger us to become hungry. We have obesity.
What made
Okay.
you like what specific stories come to mind when you think of that? Because that reminds me of it. You ever seen the movie Tuxedo?
I have.
Jackie Chan.
Oh
That
yeah, yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
have.
essentially there was a water company that made water that made you thirsty.
Uh-huh.
And that was like a really that's kind of what's clicking right now at the moment. It's like making people kind of dependent on the company and overeating. So anyway, so what
Well,
specific example came to mind?
I mean, I just look at how our country is the country of people who are obese and overweight. But when you look at it, our country also allows things to be in foods that other countries don't. And one of those things are things that make you hungry. Maltodextrin. That is one of the things that, they put in monosodium glutamate. So
What
for instance, monosodium glutamate is it's kind of a what do you call it? One of the fillers that they put into your food that make you like Doritos have monosodium glutamate in it. Um,
holy shit.
a lot of Chinese food
hmm
has monosodium glutamate in it. Makes you hungry, makes you want more. You go get more, you get fat.
That's a really interesting. One of the biggest problems that I've come to think like that America and maybe the world at large is facing right now is addiction. And
Mhm.
addiction in many different forms. Addiction, food, porn, TV, drugs, a million different things, right? And when I was learning a little bit about addiction over this past year, and one of the leading experts on it, a guy by the name of Gabor Mate, if anyone's interested in it, by all means look it up. He was saying that at the core of addiction consistently through all the clients he worked with was some form of suffering, some form of pain, some form of trauma. That it's either a pain someone's trying to relieve, and the addiction will form a little bit of relief, a little bit of pleasure, and then that kind of fades and they have a craving to do it again, and it's very difficult to stop this addictive loop. Like those are the characteristics of addiction. And I wonder like what trauma is at the center? Like, what sort of pain is leading people to have all these addictive tendencies? What have you noticed is one of the like biggest forms of suffering in people's lives? Like, just from what you've observed.
I mean, I can't pinpoint one. Um, so I was born in the 70s, so I've I'm part of that generation that's seen a little bit of everything. It was before cell phones, and then we got cell phones before laptops and computers, and you know,
In that pocket, it's a little cell phone right here, a
the things
laptop.
come. I
That's
was
gotta
I
be pretty
remember
fucking
when
wild.
I remember when phones were in a big case as big as that thing right there, and people had to carry them around, put them down, and pull this phone out, and they were like 17, $1,800 phones.
hmm
Um, but the like I was getting to about the food and obesity and all these things. I feel like so when I was a kid, to get a soda, you didn't have soda in your house. When I was a kid, you had to go to a store and or you grab put your quarter in the machine and a glass bottle would come down. And you got this glass bottle and it has a little bottle cap opener on the side and you open it up and you drink your pop. That's how you got your
It
soda.
was like a luxury every now
Yeah,
and then. Like,
right.
it wasn't
And
every time I have a meal.
and as it got more popular, it was grocery stores, and then you can order cases of it. And my father, my biological father, is addicted to soda, and he has a lot of addictions. Comes from pain meds and previous issues in life, but it seems like everything you can possibly be addicted to, he's been through. And I bought him a book one time, Water. You're not sick, you're just thirsty. I forget the author's name. I know the first few letters spell the word Batman. And
Uh-huh.
that's all I remember about the author's name. But the book talks about how a lot of our illnesses and a lot of the triggers really come from just not drinking water. So like different like diarrhea or headaches, fatigue, stuff like that comes from just not being properly hydrated. Now, I saw, like all the stuff about the whole vaccination stuff going on. I've never been vaccinated in all my life, not.
Wow.
And um, my my oldest son just got the COVID vaccination a little while ago. And I'm all for it for him because if that's what he believes in, support him. Someone comes out and tells me this is what I'm going to support you. This is who you are, that I'm going to support you. But I also feel like there's a brainwashing method going on. And I feel like the more you're listening to the mainstream, the more that they can filter and kind of mold what you think and feel. So I just like if anybody says, "Did you see the news last night?" I can't tell you that I have because
Ditto.
I don't think I've turned on the news in over 20 years.
Dude, I was so upsetting over the Trump administration. I would every time I would see my parents watching it, every single fucking time, it was just only talking about Trump. Only. And I was thinking like there gotta be bigger things going on in the world right now.
Indeed,
The
indeed.
so it makes me wonder like what are the most powerful forces right now? Like what do they want? What do
Yeah,
they want for the citizens?
that's the scary part. All of these things like they predicted that the this whole COVID thing, the shutdown, the pandemic was going to happen years ago. How do you predict something like that without making it happen? And then all the business partners that are involved with this whole the drug is I mean the vaccine itself and the disease itself or the sickness itself. There's a patent on that. Like that those people own that.
Yeah, the the Wuhan lab. That was really freaky to there's a quote and I'm gonna mess it up, but it goes something like it tells you what powerful people care about when you look at what you're not allowed to say, what you're not allowed to think. And when COVID first came out, what were you not allowed to say? You weren't allowed to say that it came from the laboratory that worked on coronaviruses in that very area. That was like taboo on all the mainstream sources of media. And then you find out later that Fauci, I think I can't remember exactly what he's the head of. Big important doctor guy. That's how I have him categorized in my head. That he was one of the main funders for the sort of research that created viruses of the corona nature, and he lied about it essentially. He's like, no, I didn't fund it. Then the NIH came out and said, like, no, you're lying. We did fund it. We were a big player in creating those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about these companies, which I have no idea of, that both funded that sort of research, are funding the vaccines.
Bill Gates, the biggest guy and involved in it all.
He was the one warning us about it a few
Yeah.
years ago.
Uh-huh.
Hmm. Where do you get most of your information when you like want to learn about the world and what's going on? If it's something,
Right now, the best way to learn anything is just through searching and researching more through the internet. Um, the and you got to be careful what sites you're getting your information from because you got to cross-reference that, and then you got to make sure it's coming from a credible source.
hmm,
So it sometimes you just don't know what to believe because you have to find that credible source. Um, you know, there's I have a doctor in Pennsylvania who is a holistic doctor, and the things that I won't go over who he is or stuff like that. You can find him on YouTube, but uh, I just know that he's been in a position where the government tried to shut him down a few times. And
like his page on YouTube or like
no,
he
no,
has a
he
facility.
doesn't have a page on YouTube. Someone filmed one of his workshops and put it on YouTube, and he showed it to me.
What is
Uh,
holistic medicine? I feel like I've heard that before. It's
well,
like,
he's a medical doctor,
mhm.
but he also looks at medicine alternative. Okay, so like my grandmaster, he's a doctor of osteopathic medicine. So DO, which you go through MD, then you go to school a little bit more, then you get that DO. So he believes in homeopathic and alternative medicine as well.
What's homeopathic medicine?
Oh, dude, I
I
don't get me breaking it all down.
If anything, I'll look it
But
up later.
I'll give you an example. So I went in. I'm 48 years old. I'm a few months away from 49. And I went in. I'm like, I'm fatigued all the time. My back's been hurting. My knees have been hurting. And he uses this electrical device and checks your vitals and goes through all these different methods. And then he looks at, like, he sent me for blood tests, but he looks at the blood a little bit different. And he gives me stuff for iodine, um, thyroid, and then a host of vitamins. Now, I've always taken multivitamins. Gives me a host of vitamins. I take about 18 vitamins a day. The same day that I first started taking those vitamins, I started moving around like a kid again, man. It felt great. Now, I have had like some sciatica issues since. Just came through, just overworking myself and doing some things I shouldn't have been doing. And now learning how to get that back in order through dieting. So there's another guy here. He trains here every so often. Now, I trained him when he was a little kid at that place that I used to fight for. Now he's a health coach. I don't know what goes into being a health coach, but like, he created his own vitamin. He has some of the best sea moss around. But I was in some pain, but less pain than I had been in. And this guy says he I'm going to say prescribes, for lack of a better term, but he prescribes a way for me to eat for 5 to 7 days. So what do you want me to do? He said raw fruits, no vegetables. You can juice, but make sure it's all natural juices, and make sure the fruits that you juice have seeds in them. Day one, didn't feel any difference. Day two, I'm like, man, I really wish I had a hot meal. Day three, I'm like, think I feel better. Day four, day five, dog, I'm telling you, I felt great. Felt great. I've been feeling great ever since. So,
Huh.
and when I went to like physical therapy, they noticed that I'm like, I work out all the time, and they're like, okay, you know your routine? I said, yeah, I know my routine. They just come and say hi. You done yet? Yeah. All right. See you later. And I never really analyzed like what and I kind of increased my own exercises and did my own thing, adding on, because no one was really paying attention. It's kind of like the medical industry, man, just kind of wants to just give you some stuff and send you on your way.
I love how many, like, that book you said earlier about water, that hits such a strong point for like modern day living. That so many solutions to people's ailments, like, oh, I have low energy. Well, what's your diet? Oh, I eat fast food all the time and I drink soda all the time. So that,
And then they talk about how they don't have time. My wife and I, we meal prep every Sunday for the week. Someone will say, hey, you want to go out Sunday? Now, my Sunday's made for meal prep. It takes me a long time to meal prep all those meals,
mhm.
and then we juice. We juice for the week as well. And that has been probably one of the highlights of getting better, feeling better, moving around more with the students than sparring the last couple of weeks. You know,
Are
uh,
you sure you don't just want pain pills?
Man, I needed that jump. When it first hit me, I needed that,
Mhm.
just to be able to sleep, or
For the extreme part of it.
yeah.
Hmm.
But that's nothing I will ever want to be on for the rest of my life. It's nothing I want to depend on. Um, you know, and I think that's how they're scaring some people into a lot of these vaccinations and other pills and stuff like that. It's like, if you don't take it, you're gonna be this. I'm like, I'm not, I might have. I can't say that I've ever been extremely sick. I don't remember a time.
Well, fuck yeah, that's great, man. It seems like you're doing a lot of things right to stay healthy. Like, do you sleep well and things like that?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And I started sleeping well. There was someone, actually, the same doctor we were talking about, homeopathic, holistic, however you want to look at it. He recommended I do a parasite cleanse when I first started. And I was like, "Do you ever do a parasite cleanse?" And luckily, I was one of the ones that always stayed on top of doing those. The way he gave it to me was a little bit different. Um, where other people, Never did parasite cleanse. Have you ever done a parasite cleanse? There you go. Never done a parasite cleanse. You do one of these one time, it makes you feel so much better. And you ever have like late night cravings?
Mm.
They say that that's when parasites feed, and you want cravings the sugar. Sugar feeds parasites. So that was one of the things he asked me. You wake up in the middle of the night, just want to eat something, or want to eat late at night. It's like, you ever have sugar cravings? Like those are parasites.
What is the cleanse like? Is it just a certain diet for a few days?
No, it's a bunch of capsules, or you can take the liquid. There's black walnut hulls, no, walnut hulls, black seed extra, no. How do you say it? Black walnut hulls, wormwood, cloves, and I think it was the black seed extract as well.
How'd you end up learning about holistic medicine? Like when did that, why did you end up trusting that?
Well, my mother and my aunt was an herbalist. She passed away here about a year ago. She was an herbalist. My mom also studied, with along with my aunt, and they're always. And then I had a business partner at one time, like my brother, even to this day. Um, but he always believed in Eastern medicine, and just hearing it so much, I said, okay, well, let me give it a try. As giving it a try, I felt a difference. Where reading up about just the book on water, if you have a headache, you go to the doctor, they tell you to take Tylenol, ibuprofen, something like that, right? When in fact you could just be dehydrated. But now what they gave you worked, but it's a chemical effect where you can have a more natural effect. Now, there are times where that chemical effect is needed and there could be something severely wrong. But if you didn't try water first, how do you know?
Wow. I want to put together this thought like cleanly. It makes me wonder how much of the because I feel like addictions are so often just a poor coping mechanism, like for whatever sort of pain and trauma. And it makes me wonder how often are people promoting an addictive coping mechanism when in reality all it would take is water, healthy food, these simple things that maybe wouldn't make someone profit as much. And that brings me back to like values, like where are these people?
It's one of the kids coming in.
I got you. Oh, is there a class starting soon?
4 o'clock.
Oh, but yeah, it's 3:59.
Yeah, it'll be all right. We
Ah,
got a couple more minutes.
all right, cool. All right, so something to close up with. Are there any values that you feel like as a society, not even necessarily that you've seen on the big TV scale, but just in your own life, like your own personal community, are there any values that you feel like need to be put on a higher pedestal? Some values that have been forgotten. Like, are we off of the way in some sense?
I think really core family values, spending time with your family, sitting down, having dinner at the table with your family. It doesn't happen anymore. When was the last time you had dinner with your family at the table?
Can't remember off the before I left for the trip. I have to say my family's been pretty good about that. So maybe a couple weeks ago before I left, but I know what you mean
The
because
last time I had dinner at a table with my family was probably last Thanksgiving. You
when
know,
you say family, do you mean like immediate, like kids and
whoever lives in your home,
gotcha.
and not out at a restaurant. You know what I mean? Just
Mhm.
at home. And I'll say, in my house, it hasn't happened about a year because we don't have a table right now, so we're remodeling the house.
Gotcha.
But that's something that I always want to continue to bring back, even if it's only once a week. That's something that, I taught my children about finances, about credit, about how credit cards should be used, about how money works, you know, before and after dinner that we had at the table on Sundays. You know, I brought them up that way.
Beautiful. So if there is a class, we'll close it up now.
All right, brothers. Thanks.
Thank you.
Uh,